All right, folks, I'm back. Just got back from the range not too long ago. That was fun. And I had one of my instructor friends, firearms instructor guy who works over there. I let him try my Dirty Harry gun, the 44 Magnum. Put in a 44 Magnum cartridge because I bought some 44 Special the other day because shooting the 44 Magnum, it's too brutal on the hand. I got a big hand, man, but still. So this guy tried it. He took one shot and he was like, woo, that's it. That's it for me. That's a beast of a gun. All right, let's talk. I want to talk first before I get into the economics. I'm sorry about this, but I gotta go one more time on the donkey face. And for those of you who don't know who Donkey Face is, that I'm referring to Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. And by the way, just let me answer. People still asking me, "Hey, Mike, are you happy with Trump now?" I voted for Trump. I like Trump. I want Trump to succeed. And you could make a bad choice when you're filling up your team. I mean, it can happen. You can make a bad choice. I don't think Donkey Face was a good choice. Donkey Face raised money. I get the game of politics. If you're in the game of politics, you kind of owe people favors if they help you out financially in your campaign. And Donkey Face did raise money for Trump during his campaign, not as much as Elon. Of course, Elon basically, he's limitless, let's just say. But so I guess, Donkey Face was owed something. Trump made him Commerce Secretary. I don't think he was a good choice. I just don't think he's very intelligent. The more I look into this guy, I think maybe the one skill or power that he had, if you want to call it that, he was very shrewd in dealing with people and getting them to do things. And he must have been, I think he had a side to him who almost was mafioso-like. Probably very cutthroat. I don't know. But what I want to talk about is, once again, this comment that he made, this very, smug, about, hey, if you don't receive your Social Security check and if you complain about it, you must be a fraudster. And Howard Lutnick, Donkey Face's firm, or his old firm, Cantor Fitzgerald, they were a primary dealer in government bonds. They were like with J.P. Morgan and Bank of America and Morgan Stanley. Those big Wall Street firms, they buy government bonds at auction from the Treasury. They're the first line of buyers of government securities. And then they turn around and they sell them off to their customers, or sometimes, many times, they hold an inventory because they might not sell them immediately. And I'm just curious what Donkey Face would say if that inventory of government bonds that was held by Cantor, if they didn't get their interest payment. Don't you think he would complain about that? And what do you think he would say if somebody from Treasury called him up and said, oh, you're complaining that you didn't get your interest payment? You must be a fraudster. You must be a scam artist. Now, we as consumers or borrowers, if we go to a bank, if we have a mortgage, if we have any kind of a payment, a credit card payment, we are expected to pay that on time. Now, there might be a little bit of a leeway, but there is a time limit that either you pay or you are technically in default. Okay? And I would like to know how far you would get if you didn't pay your mortgage on time and you went into default, if you called up the mortgage company, the bank, and said, after you got that letter from the bank saying you are now in default, and then you go and you call up the bank and you say, you must be fraudulent. You're expecting me to pay on time and you're making a big deal about it? You must be fraudulent. I mean, the situation is so ridiculous. His comment was so ridiculous and so condescending that, and deservedly, I see that he's getting some backlash. I don't know if he was out there in the media today. He's been out there in the media every single day since he assumed his post as Commerce Secretary. I don't know if I didn't see anything. I don't intentionally look for this guy. People send me stuff, but I didn't see him today. Nobody sent me anything today. If you saw him, let me know. I would be surprised. He probably got the message through the White House saying, hey, Howard, you got to tone it down for a couple of days. You know, you got to go AWOL for a couple of days because you really went over the line on that comment. I mean, that was like such a ridiculous, condescending remark that, I mean, it puts a bad stain on the administration. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's the first to go. All right, that's enough for that. Let me say that very interesting. There might be kind of a new condition, let me call it that, a new condition developing as a result of the debt ceiling and the very high level of system reserves, banking reserves. You know, I've explained this in many other videos about what has been going on with a rapid and large increase in reserve balances in the system. Reserves are bank assets. They need to be capitalized. So when you get this massive dump of reserves very quickly, it's destabilizing. It may put some banks in jeopardy of being in compliance with the supplemental leverage ratio. That's a regulatory rule that they have to follow. So it kind of like it takes time to digest, you know, and ordinarily when Treasury is not operating under the debt ceiling, they sell securities to drain some of those reserves, okay? And that's all that Treasury security sales are. It's simply a reserve drain. That's it. And by the way, that could be accomplished by selling nothing more than short-term T-bills, 30 or 60 or 90-day T-bills. I don't know why the government sells, you know, this whole entire maturities going all the way out to 30 years. It's really unnecessary. But again, this all stems from the false belief that the government is borrowing its dollars, okay, which is a preposterous assertion. It's just a preposterous claim. I mean, you don't need to borrow what you can create without limit. The sale of government securities, no matter what the maturity, whether it's a 30-day T-bill or a 30-year bond, all that is a reserve drain. So you can accomplish that with the shortest dated maturities, and you don't have to go all the way out and sell, you know, 2 years and 5 years and 7 years and 10 years and 30 years. And however, I've seen people say, oh, they should sell 100-year bonds and lock in the rate. I mean, come on, people. You know, all of this stuff that, you know, I've dedicated this channel. And by the way, I got to thank you guys because I'm closing in on 10,000 subscribers. And that may not be a lot. You know, I got something like 9,200. That may not be a lot compared to many, 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 many YouTube channels out there. But, you know, this is a very narrow subject, MMT. It's off most people's radar screens. And I find that to be good. I'm happy about that. I don't want mass following because, you know, that might dilute the effectiveness of the things we understand and the things that we can put to use. But I want to thank you guys for signing up and being subscribers because it's cool. I just think it's great. 10,000, when I hit 10,000, I'm going to throw a party, man. Anyway, I dedicate this channel to help educate you guys, to provide information, to provide insight. And it's what I talk about and try to explain. Like everything that we hear and the root of all policy, when you're talking about economic policy, the core of all policy emanates from a fundamental misunderstanding or lack of understanding of how the monetary system functions. It's really kind of based on an old-fashioned kind of gold standard mentality where everything is looked at as lack. You know, there's a lack of money. There's a lack of financial whatever. So when you have that as the core component of your framework, right, your policy framework, when you have lack, and we're talking about money, not real assets. Real assets would be, you know, food and water and healthcare and infrastructure and education and environment and, you know, all the house, shelter, all that kind of stuff. We're talking about money, which is basically an accounting system. But if your core understanding of that accounting system is that there's somehow a lack, an inability to put entries into the books, you know, the pen has no more ink or it's going to run out of ink, or if we put in too many entries into the books, the whole thing's going to spiral out of control. If that's the core understanding of your framework, then everything emanating from that, every policy decision emanating from that is going to be incorrect. It's like if you have some kind of a formula, a mathematical formula, and let's say you have one constant in that formula, which is critical to the correct outcome, and you mess up the constant, what's going to happen? The formula is going to spit out the wrong answer, and then you're going to be screwed, okay? And maybe that formula is something critical, like, you know, the weight to lift ratio of an airplane or something like that, right? I mean, then you're talking about a catastrophic failure where the thing could freaking crash. So here's the thing where I think I started to get into this, where I think we might have a new condition developing, but I don't think this is a condition that is going to be around long term. I think it's here now because of the constraint of the debt ceiling and the inability, I wouldn't say inability, but more or less the difficulty now of Treasury to really manage reserves in the way that it should be with the sale of, you know, bonds and notes, because we're under the debt ceiling. And it's funny and it's ironic because I think now it's possible that tax drains, which used to be, you know, bearish for the market, at least for a period of time, right? And that's understandable because what is a tax drain? It's the government removing balances from the non-government. So we're left with less money, right? So there's less money to deploy, at least for a period of time, until that is recycled back from spending. But now, because reserve balances are, you know, they're elevated and they're a little bit burdensome to the financial sector. They gotta be capitalized, right? They don't need all these excess reserves. They don't need them. They don't want them. But it's a consequence of government spending. If the government is spending $7 trillion plus annually, which it does, naturally you're going to have this massive buildup of reserves. You know, I equated it, that was my bilge pump analogy, where the boat is constantly getting flooded with water, but you have the bilge pump which evacuates the water. It pumps it out. With the debt ceiling, the bilge pump is shut off. So now you have the water coming in, and you have no way, or let's say not a good way, not an effective way to get rid of the water. Now you're kind of scooping it out with a spoon, okay? No good. So along comes tax drains, which kind of does the job for you, all right? Whereas in the past, when reserve balances were kept, steady at a manageable level, and if they ever got a little bit too high, the bilge pump kicked in, that was treasury sales, and then it would empty that out. Tax drains were negative because then we really felt, the financial system was fine in terms of its level of reserves. They were cool, they had enough capital. So the tax drain, it did have a negative effect because it still does what it does. It drains our accounts. But now, maybe, I'm not saying 100%, but I'll give you an example, which I'm starting to notice. Yesterday, we had about a 24 billion drain. We had a big market rally yesterday. What was it? Dow was up like it was like 560 points. They were all up, okay? Normally, you would have struggled a little bit yesterday because of that tax drain. Today, we kind of spinned our wheels a little bit. So like the first effect is that relief on the system, right? The bilge pump kicked in. And today, feeling it a little bit more from the non-financial sector having those balances drained. So now I'm curious because tomorrow we're going to get a Social Security payment. Hopefully, right? I don't know. Maybe we'll find out that freaking Donkey Face is right. And he's like, I'm supposed to get, look, guys, I get my Social Security deposit tomorrow. I'll let you know if it doesn't come. All right. And I don't know if I'll make a big stink. I wouldn't even know who to talk to. Actually, they're saying now that cuts at the Social Security Administration has left people calling and just the phones are ringing, and nobody's there to answer it. So, I mean, I don't even think if you wanted to complain, you'd be able to reach anybody. Maybe that was their goal too. Like, fuck you. We're just going to shut the phones down. We're getting rid of people and then, just deal with it. But I'll let you know. So anyway, normally on a Social Security payment day, we get a positive reaction in the market because balances are added to the non-financial, to our accounts, recipients. And, it's usually like, it could be a 45, 50 billion day, 45 billion leading flow day. Nice, right? That might be negative tomorrow because once again, what is that? That's the water crashing into the boat without the bilge pump really being turned on. You follow me? So like, I'm curious to see what happens tomorrow. I'm kind of leaning bearish. And if that's what happens, then I think we're really in kind of a new condition right now. That's what I called it at the beginning when I started to talk about this. It's not going to be permanent because eventually they're going to raise the debt ceiling. They got to raise the debt ceiling. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous. We go through this every freaking time, and it's totally ridiculous. So they're going to have to raise it. But in the meantime, and I think they're saying it could be anywhere from July to October. They're not sure. Look, April tax drain is gonna help Treasury. The Treasury general account, that's the Treasury's account at the Fed. It's getting down. It's getting low, man. So the tax drain in April and then the tax drain on May 1st. So they probably get them through May, June. They're talking July to October. They don't know yet. They're coming out with different forecasts. Bessent has a forecast. I don't know. So we'll see, but I think we might be in a new condition, which you could exploit every time. If you could use these 0 data expiration options and play this thing, if that's the case. But I want to see what happens tomorrow. Should be interesting. Anyway, that's it for today, folks. Please like and subscribe. I can't wait I want to get to 10,000 subscribers. Thank you to everybody who's already subscribed. And don't forget, go to my website, pitbulleconomics.com. Sign up for a 30-day free trial to MMT Trader. See you tomorrow. Bye.